fascinated by the sheer existence of it, and he wanted nothing more than to get his hands on it. And since, he's not above intruding on, people's personal private stuff and like breach of confidence, I hope he never got his hands on it, because that would be so fucking embarrassing. I literally wrote everything in this diary. I recapped every day when something interesting was happening. So yeah, to this day I don't know, but I guess it's not relevant now. But oh my god, if he read even one line of this diary, I would have died. I was starting to see him lose every last remnant of any attractive character trait, and there was nothing to compensate for his negative traits anymore. He stopped caring about how he looked. He stopped caring about going to the gym. He started gaining weight rapidly, and that was always kind of his body type, but he was very rigorous, I guess, about his diet and exercising, and he was very toned before, but he was always telling us that people used to call him fat, and he was like fat as a child and this and that. So that kind of came back to haunt him the second he did not have, I guess, the mental capacity to keep up with this rigorous routine. And this is also like the beginning of a whole another story that I'm gonna tell. So that was like the first sign that something was going on with him. Sleeping schedule was way off. One day he was at my place, and my current best friend, she was my best friend at the time, was also there. They both slept over. Sleeping over is not really the term, because we did not sleep. We were trying to see how Gene lives his life, so we basically did not sleep the whole night. And then in the morning we went for a walk, and then we were just dead. We just had to crash. Like, it was just so unhealthy. But it's not like everything was just forgotten. I knew now more than ever how much of a bastard he was, and now that I talked to Tina again, we shared our thoughts, we regrouped, and it was just so obvious that he was just a piece of shit. This friend of mine that was too young to hang out with a lot of us, she was banned from talking to me or to anyone else by her parents, because she got shit-faced once and she ended up puking on the bus home, and I just felt so bad that she got grounded. And that was the end of us hanging out. We met up just a couple of times in like 15 years afterwards, so it's very sad that I had to lose my friend over my own stupid actions and putting her into this stupid position. And actually I got a chance to tell her that not that long ago, like a year ago, she reconnected with me, because she's very flaky. That's like the thing. I would have loved to hang out with her, but she's extremely flaky, and I don't deal with flaky people. I got my hopes up a lot with her, and she just never showed or whatever. She constantly disappears when we, chat on WhatsApp and stuff like that, so I don't deal with that. It doesn't matter who you are, but once we were in our like active talking stage, she told me the story about Gus doing what he did in the bathroom, and I told her that I have so much pain and regret over what I did, and she basically told me that it wasn't my fault. But I mean, she was being nice, but it was my fault. I did put her in this position. She was too good for this group of friends, just because I felt like it was a godsend, and I could avoid the most dangerous parts of this whole situation. It doesn't mean that everyone can and everyone will find this group satisfying emotionally, spiritual. So I still had resentment towards Gene. This whole friendship of ours, I was loyal. I had a lot of love, friendship-wise, in my heart, but I had a lot of grievances. This new phase of our friendship was not different. So I had this little opportunity to kind of pay him back a lot, so the three of us could hang out, which was fine by me. So it wasn't like us two hanging out together. Also, yeah, Gene mentioned that to me once, and he was like, why do you hang out with Pete so much all of a sudden? And so I just immediately thought, why not just fuck with him a little bit? And I told him, I don't know, I kind of have a little bit of a crush on him, I guess. And I just played it straight. I just did this same thing he used to do to me. I just looked him in the eye and I confided in him because, you know, he's my friend. It's not like he can be upset over it. We didn't sign any type of contract. I never promised him anything. And I just kept up this charade. The downside of it was kind of that, I guess, Pete found out about it too. I guess Gene said something. So he kind of started not flirting with me per se, but just occasionally, like tiny things here and there. He started texting me more often, and he called me honey and love all the time, putting all kinds of hearts in the chat. I did not take that seriously at all, you know. I was already at this point in my life where I knew that words, chats, promises, it all means fucking less than nothing. If a guy likes you, he'll make a move and he'll make it as obvious and plain as possible. I, saw that with Gene and Anne versus with Gene and me, so I was just ignoring that. It did not even leave a scratch on my imagination. I did not give a fuck about that. And he would be like inviting me to dance occasionally when slow music would be playing at a party or something. It was just nothing. There was nothing going on. But I was playing it up and Gene was buying it and eating it up, the whole lie story. And one time, I know, it's just so stupid. I had this pen that was invisible, but it had a UV light at the other side of it that you could activate, and then you would be seeing through the UV light what was written. So one time I see Gene write something on this piece of paper right before he was about to leave and go home. And as he left, I shone the UV light on the piece of paper, and on it was written, Pete is fucking annoying. He was like also playing it up and acting all jealous. I don't know why he would do that. Honestly, if Gene really liked me, he would have either hid it because he would be too proud to show it, or he would just make a move. But this like acting jealous, for me, was just a sign that it wasn't that serious. He was just manipulating me, all pity me, poor me. I'm so sad that you're flirting with this guy. I did not expect that to happen. And the saddest thing and the most pathetic thing was one time he was laying on my bed, we were talking, and then he just took my hand and put it on his heart, and he was like, see how fast my heart is beating? And I'm just like, yeah, let's not. And I took my hand away and I just immediately shut that shit down because I just knew where this is going, and I was not going there at all. I was so over him. And honestly, I can say that, I outgrew him, I outsmarted him, I'm this and that, but honestly, I never was attracted to him. I don't know how I would have behaved if he was a very attractive man. I honestly think that it would have been much harder for me. But when there's no attraction, you just, your loyalty and all of that was this shy, timid, sheltered girl from a good family, blah 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 blah. She did not cuss, she did not drink, but of course when she joined our decrepit, sordid group of friends, she started drinking and this and that, and yeah, she basically went down the same way as my friend did. She just did not really know her limits. I mean, I brought her into the fold. Tina kind of was a little bit catty about that behind her back, maybe because she was hanging out with Sam or what, but I put a stop to that, and I just made everyone welcome her. She was a couple of years older than I was, like 16, 17 or something. Sam and her started kind of dating, and Sam did her really fucking dirty. One time, Sam met this random girl at the party, and the girl was a huge flirt. She made everyone feel like the center of her attention. She was just like one of those people that just give you her undivided attention or pretend to. She was the same way with the girls, with the boys, and maybe it wasn't even her like per se flirting, but the guys obviously took that as such. But Sam just lacked self-awareness to realize that, and he immediately fell for the girl, and like a couple of days later he just immediately started to pine after her, and he broke up with Melanie on the fucking spot. And he was such an asshole about it that when she locked herself in the bathroom to just cry, understandably, he went over to me and he was like, can you like, I don't know, help her or something? And he went right after this other girl, who, by the way, did not want anything like that to do with him, obviously, and she just disappeared from the group, never to be heard of again, as people do. So that was a huge assholey thing to do. So when Jean and I stopped talking, Jean started hitting on Melanie for some weird reason. It was his own brother's ex-girlfriend, you know? And Jean still did not care because Jean is a fucking piece of shit. Jean was already just nothing to write home about when he was dating Anne, and that was a while ago. Like, at least when I was messing with him, he still looked kinda good. Anne already was starting to get the shit end of the stick, but this girl, she got like the remnants of what Jean used to be. I don't know why on earth she would fall for it. I guess the only reason was that she wanted to make Sam jealous, but I don't know why she had to go this far with Jean. Maybe he still had some charm to him or what. I don't know. I was just so surprised by it. This girl was actually the one that ratted me out. I think she blew things out of proportion. I thought that she was my friend, so I confided in her and I told her my grievances with, you know, Tina and with Jean, and she just made it seem like I'm this fake person. I guess I was fake, but I was operating under a lot of secrecy because I could not express my feelings and stuff like that. Not trying to excuse my behavior, but again, I wasn't like maliciously trying to do anything, but she made it seem to everyone that I was like this evil creature, and I was very surprised and backstabbed by that, and I never fucked with her again. She tried to like talk to me once after that happened, and I was like, no, I don't want to talk to you, I have nothing to discuss with you. We would reconcile. It would be just a group thing because I just knew that she was completely full of shit and fake. I don't know why she would mess with Jean, but she did, and this is where the things got really terrible for Jean. So first of all, Sam, I guess growing up with Jean rubs off on a person because all of a sudden now he wanted to get back together with Melanie. Started like running after her, trying to make amends. For a while she stood steadfast, but pretty quickly she switched gears and it's just hard for me to feel any type of pity towards anyone involved. It was just a dirty situation. Everyone involved was just being very manipulative and hurtful towards everyone else. It's just so sordid, but whatever. So that just ended up being very hurtful for Jean, but that's not even the point. The point is that Jean was already at this point in time dealing with severe mental health issues, and this is where we get to the absolute cherry on top of this horrible story. So, real quick time jump. A couple of years ago, Jean told me this story about a local weed dealer. It's like this 50-plus-year-old guy. He's the father of Jean's gym buddy, and is also the father of the girl that Gus and Tina were kissing, in their kissing trio. He also provided a lot of weed for free, and he just wanted some company, some people to drink with, to smoke with. So of course the guys took advantage of that. And yet, years ago, Jean told me that Jean's grandmother was clairvoyant or something, and Jean felt like he was also kind of clairvoyant. I just let this story slip out of my mind immediately because it was just a load of shit. But in the same sentence, Jean basically told me that he had this inkling that this local weed dealer guy was kind of satanic, and that he was kind of evil, and that he was messing with forces of evil and with Satan, and that his wife has a tattoo of the number 666 on the back of her head or something. So it was years ago. I never took that shit seriously, but years pass, and Jean, while still messing with Melanie, was at this local dealer's place. They were smoking weed, and then all of a sudden, Jean looks at this guy, and he sees that this guy has a fucking tail and hooves and horns, and that he's basically Satan incarnate. Yeah. Jean he just randomly started to hallucinate his fucking balls off, and it never stopped again. His mind just went full on, full throttle crazy, and ever since that moment, Jean was gone mentally. Yup. It's actually very horrific, and I don't think that anyone deserves to have a psychotic break. I feel like weed is taken way too lightly. Weed is good and all on moderation, but only for people who don't have any type of tendency or inherited mental issues, which Jean absolutely did. Someone in his family was schizophrenic, and Jean was at this perfect age where many people get their first schizophrenia event, and weed was just a catalyst for it. He smoked almost daily, and he just happened to get the shit end of the stick and lose this gamble, because it turned out that Jean has had schizophrenia all along, and that was actually diagnosed. But back then, no one knew about that. Jean himself did not know that he had schizophrenia, so he just randomly started seeing demonic visions, demons, all kinds of crazy, scary shit that just started to destroy his mental health. It was a fucking attack from every side of his existence. He could not close his eyes and be free of that. He could not be home and be free of that. He could not do anything because shit taste of music. Not that hip-hop is inherently shitty. The hip-hop he listened to was like lowbrow, just shit quality, some like local band, just bullshit, chauvinistic piece of crap. He started dressing like that. He was just like coping really hard because he did not have any girlfriend, and I guess that was just this like desperate attempt to fit in more. Sam was kind of doing his own thing. He was the first of us to get a driver's license and stuff like that, making moves. And Gus was becoming an alcoholic, just a whole mess. And we girls, we kind of started to hang out with a different group of guys, and that group of guys ended up being our absolute best, loveliest friends ever. With some of them, we're still friends, and we're still cool. So yeah, this New Year's party hit. I found out for the first time that Sam and Melanie were back together, and so when I came, Sam took me aside and he was like, look, I know you don't talk to Gene at the moment, but if he were to talk to you, can you just talk to him? And his attention could be kind of diluted between us all so that we don't get the bulk of his annoying shenanigans and how he likes to get under people's skin. So I was like, do I have a choice? So yeah, it wasn't long before Gene led me aside and like apologized for how our friendship ended, and I don't remember what happened at all. He was like, I miss you and stuff like that. So I was just like, okay, fine, we can talk. And he just latched on to me for the rest of the party. There were a couple of guys around, and one of them was kind of a little bit trying to hit on me. And Gene was so antagonistic towards him, threatened him once. He was just like really angry, and he did not let that guy even approach me, which I did not appreciate that at all, because it's my fucking business. You don't get to do that. But I wasn't interested in that guy anyway, so. And the cringiest, worst moment ever was when this guy was taking a picture on my camera, and Gene and I were sitting, and this guy was just, everyone was drunk, and he was like, now kiss. And we just kissed, and that was so fucking cringy. I don't know why we did that. There was just this like shorthand between us, I guess, where it just like happened, and we just did that without thinking. But oh my god, like to this day I will never know why I did this shit. It was just so cringy. But yeah, I deleted that picture immediately. I just did not want to look at it. I just cringed so hard. It was like a second, but still, why would I do that? I mean, I'm literally so disgusted. It just kind of happened. It did not mean anything at all to me. Okay, I have to jump back a little bit because I forgot to tell a crazy story about Gene. Let's just jump back real quick, like a year or so. So, we were celebrating another New Year's, and Gene asked me to go get cigarettes right before 12 o'clock. I don't know why he would do that. I think that he wanted to celebrate New Year's with me, or he wanted me to celebrate New Year's with him and not with anyone else. I followed him expecting to be able to return in time, but he was just dragging his ass, being slow as fuck, biding his time until there was just no time to return, and we kind of like stood there at this gas station at 12 o'clock at night while the fireworks were, exploding everywhere, and we just hugged each other and said Happy New Year's to each other. At the end of the night, he again did the same weird shit where he antagonized someone passing by, started a fight with this random guy by throwing little fireworks at his feet. They could not have hurt this guy, but I mean, why do that? And the guy gave him a fair warning a couple of times, and then it was just on. Everyone started fighting, and my best friend covered Gene and threw herself between the guy and Gene and almost got killed. But the guy once the adrenaline wore off, to notice how fucking terribly painful his shoulder was. He was chugging vodka one after the other as, I guess, like a pain medicine, and he got shit-faced drunk. We had to call the ambulance, and of course I had to go with him. I jump in, and oh my god, like, again, it's the New Year's. That was my first time riding an ambulance. I did not know how this shit works. It's not like I expected that the ambulance will bring us back home, but I just did not think about it. So I'm wearing a fucking t-shirt and I'm jumping in, and I would have been so fucked. But then, of all people, Tina's boyfriend that I hated and that hated me runs after me, and last second gives me my winter jacket and is like, take it. So I took it, and thank God that this guy did that, because I was too drunk and stupid to even think that I might need it on my way back. So we go to the hospital, and Gene makes a total absolute fucking ass out of himself, regressed into this like childlike state where he was hanging onto my arm and following me around and speaking to me in this like weird voice. I felt like I was having a toddler around. He was asking me if he could pee and stuff like that. I was like, bitch, don't piss me off. The paramedics put his shoulder joint back in. This guy had to press his foot on Gene's side, and he was pulling on his arm, and the other one was holding him down. They sent me away, but then immediately came back to get me because he was not cooperating with them without me. It was a fucking shit show. I was so fucking embarrassed, and they sent us on our way. So we were walking home. He was fucking trying to talk to any stranger out there. I was so scared that we're gonna get our ass beat again, because he was being such an asshole and making stupid jokes. It was kind of a longish way to walk, and I just suffered in silence. I could not wait to get home, and this fucking idiot dislocated his fucking shoulder again because he took off everything that they put on him, and he started like trying to prove to me that his arm was now as good as new, and he did that shit again, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I'm not going back there. So I'm just saying that to say that one time I already had a shit show experience with him on New Year's. I mean, it's a fun story. I don't regret it. It's like a funny memory. But jumping back to real time, he asks me to go get cigarettes fucking again. And I'm like, I know what the fuck that is. I know we're not getting back there in time. And he's like, yeah, I cannot be here. This girl's a witch. This guy's this and that. I'm suffocating. I need a break. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what? Because that was the first time I heard of any delusions of that sort from him. So I'm like, okay. So we went, same ordeal. He hugged me, blah, 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 fireworks. I mean, literal fireworks. I finally get him to return. He just can't stand it there. He did not talk about Melanie at all for some reason, even though they were freshly off. He basically left everyone alone, and he was just hanging on to my leg. He was like, I can't be here, I can't stay here. So I'm like, okay, let's go. I asked a buddy of mine if we could stay over at his place, and we went over there. And as we were on this guy's couch trying to sleep, Gene basically told me everything that happened to him, and about his delusions, and about how he's being paranoid and followed by demons. And oh my god, bro, listening to that, my eyes were huge as plates. I could not believe my ears. If you know someone very well and you have been a friend of this person just to compute for me. I have no words. I just sat there listening to him, not understanding a word he was saying, just totally confused. So when I got home the next day, and when I went to sleep the next night, I had such terrible night terrors. I kept having this scary dream where I was kind of trying to help Jean, and there was this evil force, like a poltergeist, whatever, trying to kill me. And then I would wake up in my room and everything would be fine and I'll be awake. But then it will start again, and it turns out that I have not woken up. It was an illusion. I'm still sleeping, and I just could not wake up. Anytime I would wake up and feel safe, I would just try to go about my morning, and then all of a sudden the furniture will start moving, something will fly and attack me. It was like a very exhausting, long, scary dream. And honestly, that day it felt like a confirmation that something evil was going on. I was like not scared shitless, because the rational part of my brain was still very much active, but man, if someone were like a conspiracy theorist and like, you know, had lesser, I don't know, intellectual comprehension, that shit could really fuck you up. It was scary as hell. So Jean started coming over to my place every damn day, and this is where I had every type of information that I needed to know that nothing supernatural was going on, because talking to him was a chore. When this New Year's party, I guess it wasn't as noticeable for some reason, but then spending time with him completely sober, just the two of us, no distractions, just the conversation, it became abundantly clear that he was losing his mind. He could not keep the conversation going for shit. His mind was wandering. He was visibly hallucinating all the time. He was paranoid. He was talking on and on about some weird shit that it was very hard to follow. And I just knew that something was going on with him. It wasn't like someone genuinely being attacked or targeted. It was someone clearly delusional and paranoid. And I at first I was trying to get him to talk through his fears and to explain to me what happened, but he just could not even form a coherent sentence. It was extremely hard to even follow his way of thinking. And then I talked to Sam, and Sam was like, yeah, he's been hospitalized recently and he's been diagnosed with schizophrenia. So I'm like, wow, shit, bro. Yeah, and he talked to me about his experience. He felt like that was all part of the plan, that his hospitalization was, intended to drag him down even more. He was having severe issues. He felt like, for example, he felt like the nurse came in and hung a red piece of fabric on the chair in his room, and he could not bear this color, so he hid the piece of red fabric. So then she returned, she found it, she hung it up again and again and again. He had this problem with the color red in general. I feel like schizophrenic people do tend to notice certain things way more. I obviously have informed myself a little bit, after the fact about this terrible mental illness. And it's basically that a healthy human mind has the capacity to filter out useless information, like certain coincidences that you just know are just a bare coincidence. Your brain does not fixate on it. If you happen to see a red car 3 times in a row, at most you'll be like, funny. That's it. You don't dwell on it. But schizophrenia makes your brain take on way, way, way more information, and this information just does not get prioritized in any type of correct order. So everything is relevant, everything is world moving. And I'm sorry if what I'm saying is like not correct. This is how I interpreted it. There is this very interesting experiment. You can Google unless you're dangerous, and he wasn't violent or anything, so he just kept running away, jumping the fence. I don't know, he kept like crouching in the bushes, watching this institution, seeing police cars immediately running after him, even though no cops came. So his stories never added up, and knowing his diagnosis now, everything made sense, and I was just, I don't know, I was getting tired of being his emotional support system, because I just knew this man would never have been an emotional support system for me. He would probably use me for sex and whatever if I were mentally like handicapped by some illness or anything. Everything that he has done to me was now like weighing against what he expected me to do, what emotional labor he expected me to carry out for him, and I was just like not seeing why I should still be there to support him. If there was something I could do to help him, then we could talk. Like, I would go above and beyond for him or for any other person if I knew that this person was listening to me, if I could send him wasn't even this excuse that all have like emotional attachment and these words made me scared or sad. No, I did not give a fuck about that man, and I still started sleeping with him. And the thing that's absolutely unhinged is the fact that I guess after the second time I was late on my period and I started worrying that I might, be pregnant, and I was not yet at the point where that would be a huge concern. It wasn't out of the ordinary, I guess, but I was like thinking about that, and I even told Tina that I guess at this point she knew what was going on, and in school we were just chatting and I told her, and she was just like looking at me. When Tina looks at you like you're the crazy one, that's your go to just check yourself in some mental institution for real. And we were outside with friends on this rare occasion where every other girl was also there. And I guess we were having a picnic or something, and everyone was already drunk. It was dark and late. We were in these woods, and Jean and I were kind of chilling on this picnic blanket, and everyone was there. Anne was there, Tina was there, but he just didn't care. Maybe, the darkness and lack of visibility made him more bold, so he kind of started like making out with me and I don't know, asking me to go home with him or something, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm late. And I don't remember per se what he said, but it wasn't anything like him being scared or reacting in a way that you would expect from a douchebag like him. It was more like just a chill reaction, something along the lines of like, what happens or something like that. And I was just like, I could have had a baby that would be 20 fucking years old now, and I could have been sharing custody with it. Oh my god, bro, my parents would have had a fit. Oh my god, it would have been such a disaster. And I think back to this day about the situation. I just think to myself, what would I have done? I'm not against abortion by no means. What I do have my qualms about is if I'm, strong enough to get one, or if my sensitive nature and my sentimental nature could have, prevented me from getting through an abortion. I don't know. I was friends with a girl that got an abortion, so it's not like it's unheard of, and she was my age when that happened. It's a crazy story, but anyway, I don't know, it's funny that I'm recording that particular bit of information later because it completely slipped my mind. But yeah, that's also what happened, and it could have been a terrible fucking disaster, but fortunately for me, everything, was just a false alarm, and I got my period like a couple of days later. My initial attraction to him was gone for like 70% of the time I was dealing with this man, and I still don't know why. It was this sense of loyalty that I kind of carried with pride. Like, it was prideful of me to continue to be loyal to him. It was something that I had to prove to myself that I was the ride or die bitch, and all of that just dawned on me. And yeah, I don't deny the fact that all of a sudden all these things dawned on me the second he really was that Sam has to leave, that he can't live with him, and Gene's delusions always suited him. It was always like never against his best interest, I guess, as always. So now that Sam is dating Melanie again, and Melanie wants to come over, occasionally, obviously, because her boyfriend lives there, which is kind of whack of her to do, not gonna lie. Like, you fucked the both of them, and now you just expect, things to work out perfectly when you like go to the other room now. I guess just not thinking about it. Were they still living together when she was messing with Gene? That's just so whack. But whatever. So Gene forced Sam out of the apartment, and that just did not land with me. And again, I'm gonna be honest and just say that I used it as an excuse. I was looking for an out, and I was looking for a reason to just cut ties, and like, this was just the last drop. Gene was sick and he was in dire need of help and support, but he was still the same selfish, egocentric, vile person that he used to be. His hardship did not change him. It did not, make his soul less rotten. He was just the same self-centered asshole. And I just let him have it. I was done. I was done with him constantly buzzing my door every damn day, asking him to see if his horoscope is right, asking me to Google like his dreams and give him the meaning. After I already told him that I'm not down to hang out, he was still crossing this boundary and coming over again and again and again. At this point, my mother, who is like the most polite, non-confrontational person ever, was telling him to leave me alone. She was answering him buzzing at the door and talking to him for me, because I just did not want to talk to him anymore. And so I finally budged and walked out to talk to him, and I told him that I was not cool with how he treated Sam, and that he was kind of being very egotistical, and that I don't really want to continue hanging out with him. And he was like, well, you take Sam then, maybe he could stay over at your place. And I'm like, that's really not my problem. Like, none of it is really my problem. I just let the conversation end there. But like, you know what I mean? It's not my problem, and I have taken on way too much burden from this person, and that was enough. And this is where I was done forever with Gene. And I just started walking away from him. I knew him well enough that I knew I could not go home. So I just started walking to like a completely random friend's place. And he followed me, and I was a little bit quicker than him. But he knew where this friend lives, so he knew where I was going. She was kind of like heading out, but I was like, hey, Gene is like following me around. I don't want to talk to him. Can I just hide at your place and just, Of course, her door is buzzing. It's Gene. She opened the door. I'm hiding in her guest bathroom. And she's like, what? Hi, Gene, what do you want? It's like, is Sadie there? She's like, no. And it's like, trying to question her, like a fucking detective. Why you dressed, like you're heading out then? She's like, because I am. And like, she's not one to dance around. She's like very direct to sometimes to like very negative consequences for everyone involved. But she's like, Gene, bye. So she got him to leave. But she also knew who we're dealing with. So she's like, okay, let's go. We have this like shared cellars. So every once these cellars are connected, and you can walk through the whole house by the underground and exit in a completely different house, basically. So this is what we did, and all went well. But then we just, for some reason, we went over to Anne's place. I'm not sure why exactly, because we weren't planning on hanging out. And what do we see? Of course, it's Gene, because he fucking anticipated that I could be there, and he's already waiting outside for me. Anne is already also outside, looking surprised as hell. So yeah, it was just a goddamn mess. Anne was already dating this other guy. He ended up not being much better